I hereby call the Brockton School Committee to order, it being 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. We are here at the George M. Romm Little Theater at Brockton High School, which is 470 Forest Ave, Brockton, Mass. 02301. I need to read into the record the following. Dear visitors, welcome to a meeting of the Brockton School Committee. This is the agenda that will be discussed this evening. Please note the hearing of visitors is included. If you have a statement or question, please give your name to the secretary. Mrs. Campbell has given me the sign-in sheet. We have no hearing of visitors tonight. In addition to attending here, the public can also view this evening's meeting via television on Comcast Channel 8 and also on the 1071 HD version and online via this following link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. At this time, I would ask all in attendance, please stand and we'll salute the American flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. I will establish a quorum at this time by reading the roll. Mrs. Sullivan? Here. Mr. Gomes? Here. Mr. Vega?
Here.
Ms. Oliver?
Here.
Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Azak?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
I'm here as well as the chair. We also have Dr. Tahiliani as the secretary clerk of the school committee. That concludes Agenda 1. Agenda 2, again, hearing of visitors. Pursuant to the school committee policy, each person requesting to speak shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Since the period is limited in 50 minutes, a total of 5 people shall be permitted to speak on a first-come, first-served basis. Again, we have nobody that has signed in, so we have achieved Agenda 2. We will now go on to Agenda 3, which is the report of Superintendent of Schools, Dr. T.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Sullivan, I apologize.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to take 2 items out of order, if I could, please. And the reason is I had surgery today. I'm not feeling well. In fact, I'm going to do these 2 motions, and I'm going to leave, because I cannot sit through this tonight.
Okay, does anybody object to that? Seeing none, if you could please list the 2 items, and then we'll get a second.
I'd like to make a motion to remove item 5 and item 8.
5 is unfinished business, and 8 is announcements.
Correct.
Motion was made. Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
I would like to remove item 2A from the consent agenda. We do have a presentation, and we have some people that are traveling, so
Yep.
they can make that presentation.
Brockton Buccaneers football.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So that's form of a motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And there was a second. Judy, you seconded Tim's, correct? Okay, so let's take them one at a time, please. Mr. Sullivan made a motion to take 5 and 8. It was properly seconded by Mrs. Sullivan. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. If you oppose, raise your hand. Vice Chair made a motion. It was properly seconded by Ms. Azak to take consent agenda, which is Agenda 4A1, which is 2-8 in our binder, and that's Brockton Buccaneers football. Motion was made, properly seconded. All in favor, please kindly raise your hand. If you oppose, raise your hand. Those matters carry. We will take those out of order, and we'll hear those right now. Number 5 is unfinished business. Number 8 is announcements. Mr. Sullivan, please.
Yes, number 8, announcements.
Yes, sir.
On January 22nd, 2025, at 9:30 a.m., almost 200 students received a full 4-year scholarship to any college in this state or university. When you think back of all the adversity that we have had at the school for the last year, these kids did great. I want to take my hats off to the parents and the students and congratulate all of them. Myself was there, and the Vice Chair, Tony Rodriguez, was there, and it was well attended. The superintendent was there. And I just want to thank them that it was a remarkable achievement. I wish a lot of other people would showed up for it. It was a nice time. That's all I have on
Number 8,
Number
announcements. Any other members have anything on announcements? Mr. Sullivan, please.
I just wanted to add that was that the John and Abigail's Adams Scholarship?
Yes, I forgot to.
It's
It was the
given
John and
to-
Abigail Scholarship Awards.
Right, that's given to students that attain a certain mark on the MCAS?
Yes, they used to have to study and take tests all year long. So I tip my
Right,
hats
so they
off to the
have to,
teachers, the students, and the parents.
Right, so the public will know that they have to attain a certain mark, and I don't know if the superintendent knows what that mark is, I don't know, but I know it's high. I know it's a high mark that they have to attain on that, and with all the controversy about the MCAS,
They did a great job.
At least there'll be the scholarship that they can work, that will kind of influence them to try hard on that, because it's no longer a graduation requirement, so it takes away the, like, that I have to try on it. If I'm a high school student, that I have to try really hard, I don't have to, I'm still gonna graduate. But the John and Abigail's, I'm hoping that stays. That's a state scholarship, so I'm hoping that stays, because that's an incentive for the students to attain a high level to get that scholarship. Thank you.
And there was almost 200 kids that got that award. It was a great day.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan, any other announcements at this time? I do want to publicly thank the Brockton City Council, our colleagues on the legislative body. Last week was the Finance Committee meeting. There was many things going on that night. I know there was a basketball game. A vice chair was supporting his son. I know Dr. T wasn't able to attend. She had a prior commitment. But myself and Dr. Clarkson, Troy, the city CFO, is here. We presented to the city council why we believe the $6 million in stabilization should come out. Again, it was cut during the budget. We put it on stabilization so it would not be lost. It would have went into the general fund. It was passed favorable back last night to the full city council, and last night it was confirmed by a supermajority vote. So 8 members plus voted to support that. So that money has come back, and we just want to thank the city council, and we'll continue to work with them as we process the budget. Any other announcements? Seeing none, Agenda 8 is concluded. Agenda 5, Mr. Sullivan, which was unfinished business?
Yes, we had, I had made a promise that I would second a motion that Jorge was going to make tonight.
I think we have some unfinished business around discussion and decision about the Boys and Girls Club's proposal regarding partnership with the Keats School and their renovations. So I'd like to make a motion to call for a subcommittee facilities meeting to bring back, I believe, Nick from the Boys and Girls Club to come, kind of have one final conversation before making a decision.
Second?
The,
On the motion.
On the
Mr.
motion.
Vice Chair, please.
there's some legal issues that are going, so we have to let the attorneys figure that out before I call the next facility subcommittee. So no dates are going to be set until legal handles some situations.
Do we have a sense of the timing around that? Do we have,
If I could say tomorrow, I'll say tomorrow, but you know how lawyers work, so we
All
just
right.
have to wait until they figure it out.
Yeah, and I'll say again, I think there's an opportunity here that has a finite time limit to it. So I think it's really important that, we figure out how to proceed.
I have signed an extension in the past with the Boys and Girls Club. I know Mr. Haim, Derek Haim, the CEO, Executive Director, wants to meet with me again. I'm happy to meet with him, but the Vice Chair is correct. So we'll come back with an update once legal counsel gives us an update. I don't know exactly when that is.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Any other, Agenda 5, any other unfinished business? Mr. Sullivan?
No, just if there's any votes I have to be taken tonight, if you'd let me know. I'm going to be a no vote on everything tonight.
Okay. Okay, any other unfinished business this evening? Seeing none, we conclude 5. And now we're going to go to, again, Agenda 4, Consent Agenda A1, which is, again, enclosure 2A, and that is Brockton Buccaneers football. Mr. Vice Chairman, please.
Thank you. We have Representative, the President of the Brockton Buccaneers football organization, Mr. Derek Stephen Wright, who will make a presentation, and we also have Mr. Dean with Fiesta Shows, and also Mr. Carney from the fairgrounds. So, Mr. Wright, you could take the podium, and the floor is all yours.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Okay, all right, have a good night, drive careful. Thank you, Tim.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Derek Wright, president of the Brockton football team. Okay. I'm usually loud enough, so.
Oh, you're a coach, of course.
Coaching, playing, all that. I'm gonna make it brief because my junior partner is getting a little restless, so, he wants to come up and say a few words. But no, we just want to, as the Brockton Football Club, I want to first congratulate Dr. Tahiliani on his appointment as superintendent. And we're all about giving back to the community, and our emphasis has been on giving to the youth and through such events, the DJ Dream Fund, Jay McGillis Charity Game, and over the summer, we hosted a couple of partnerships with Fiesta and the Brockton Fairgrounds, and we did raise some funds. And we want to donate those funds to the Brockton Youth 7-on-7 League, Downey Baseball League, Brockton Blazers Softball League, and so on. But with that being said, I want to thank Mr. Connie and Mr. Dean. Where are they? Okay. I want to thank them, and I have a little presentation for them. Hold on, Denzel. Okay. You as well. Mr. Connie. Thank you. Thank you.
You got to read it into record, Derek.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. All right. And yeah, we're donating this check here in the amount of $21,482. All right. And thank you guys
Thank
for
you,
having
Coach.
us over the years, and we appreciate everything that you guys have done for us in the past and in the future.
Thank you, Coach.
And if Mr. Dean can just allude to what he does with Fiesta shows and
Mr. Dean is my partner. I'm Mr. Flynn, the other
Flynn,
part
sorry.
of the Dean and Flynn Fiesta shows. That's fine, Tony. He's still in Florida. I came up. I wish I was still in Florida because your weather's getting colder up here right now. But first off, I'd like to just make a statement. We hadn't played the city of Brockton for a few years. And obviously with a lot of the bad press that the school system, students, and just the whole attitude in Brockton, we were thinking about not doing it. And I went to my partner and basically said, there aren't going to be a few people that ruin it for all the good people. And we went ahead and we did an event that everybody thought I was crazy to do it at Brockton High School and then over at the fairgrounds. Thank you to the Carney family and the city. And we had absolutely not one challenge. The police department had details there, but absolutely no problems, and I'm glad we did it, and I'm looking forward to doing it again in the future. And just my hat's off to everybody in Brockton, because I think a lot of that press was, I can't say it, but was a lot of bull. Thank you for having us here.
I don't know if Chris wants to say a few words and if the,
Thank everybody for the award, first and foremost. Tony, you reached out to me. I think you made it happen in 3 days or less. If you made 21,000 this year, you should make 50 next year. So anybody who wants to have another event at the fairgrounds, I'm happy to host it with Mr. Flynn, and they can give you back the money, Mr. Mayor, and members of the school committee, and Dr. Clarkson. I didn't realize he was a doctor, but okay.
all right, thank you. I don't know if we could get up and take a picture with the check superintendent and
Just one quick
couple of
question.
the members.
Mr. Sullivan, you had a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, so I just had a question for the man from Brockton Bucks football. So you said that the funds were going to go to Downey School, and you listed some things.
Yep.
So is that check there going to be split between those other things? Or
No.
is this,
It depends on what the public school, how they want to do it, but we did it in.
Point of information.
Point of
Okay, so-
information, just a point of information is, the check is to Brockton Public Schools. He mentioned the organizations, they also worked during the carnival to raise funds for their organizations. So this has nothing to do with so
so
Downey
this
School.
check is for Brockton Public?
Yeah, this is for Brockton Public.
And then the other people are also getting some
Yeah,
sort of a
they
cut
raise
from
their
the
funds during,
fundraiser.
yes,
They're getting a cut from the fundraiser?
Yeah.
So the public is aware?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Azak, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to thank the three gentlemen. You know, I was able to attend the summer fiesta show that happened at the high school, and it was the day that we did our backpackathon. And I know I went with Miss Oliver's daughter afterwards, and we don't realize there's a lot of families that have never experienced the Brockton Fair or a small carnival, and just to see these kids and their families experience this was amazing. And at first I said to Tony, I'm like, no way you're going to be able to pull that off last minute, but it came together. It did, and it came together again in the fall. And this is something, this is a bonus for our students. And this is something that we can look forward to. This was a start. And, ooh,
You all right, bud?
and with a little more. Uh-oh.
We'll take a 2-minute recess. We're back in the full session. Again, we just concluded consent agenda 4A1, which was 2A. We want to thank, again, Brockton Buccaneers football and the Carney family and Mr. Flynn. Again, that was very generous, over $21,000, so thank you very much, gentlemen. We will now go back to agenda 3, which is a report of Superintendent of Schools. Dr. Tahiliani, please.
Thank you so much, and we're starting with item A, which is the student representative report. I'm going to invite up Stephanie.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Sullivan, Dr. Tahiliani, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Vice Chair Tony Rodriguez, and the rest of the distinguished school committee members. Thank you for having me here today, and I hope you enjoy. Oh, okay. BHS Reports Live. John and Abigail Adams Scholarship. On January 22nd, BHS held a ceremony to celebrate all of the students who were recipients of the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship. This scholarship was awarded to students with an outstanding performance on the MCAS. FebFest shows. This past weekend on January 31st and February 1st, Brockton High students performed 2 shows, a comedy called Baby and a drama called Property Rights. The plays were wonderfully directed by students. Boxer Outreach. Students from the Boxer Outreach Club came to Brockton High on Saturday, February 1st to host a bag lunch event to support Father Bills in Mainspring. Court case. The BHS mock trial team went to the courthouse as plaintiffs for the case and they won. Brockton High students just don't miss. Senior night. The BHS boys and girls basketball team is hosting their senior night this weekend to honor their senior players last season on the team. Concert choir. The BHS concert choir held a dine and go event at Texas Roadhouse to support their programs. 15% of each food purchase went back to fund the school's choir. Track. The BHS boys track team took home an outstanding win at their recent track meet in both hurdles and jump records. Thank you.
Members of the committee, that was wonderful as always. Any questions for the student representative at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So I have several different things today, some highlights, just again, a tip of the iceberg of what's been happening that's great around our district, as well as some data points and some other important information. So the Red Sox paid a special visit to Plouffe on January 31st, Jackie Robinson's birthday, and hosted a panel discussion with former players Jackie Bradley Jr., Mike Cameron, and Chico Walker, along with representatives from Red Sox Foundation and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. The panel talked about Robinson's massive impact on both Major League Baseball and the civil rights movement, and then answered thoughtful questions from students. Students also had the chance to take photos with the players, mascots Wally and Tessie, and two of the team's World Series trophies from this century. Champion High School welcomed Disney master painter Rob Surratt last month for an inspirational presentation where he speed painted portraits of MLK, Mother Teresa, and Abraham Lincoln while sharing his personal journey, developing as an artist and encouraging the students to identify and chase their dreams. At the end, he unveiled a hand-painted custom portrait of one of Brockton's own champions, Rocky Marciano. Rob will be paying a visit to East later this week, and both of these visits were made possible thanks to the funding from the Massachusetts Cultural Council. 21 BHS students earned recognition for their incredible talent as part of the Scholastic Art Awards, with 7 students earning silver keys for their work. Congratulations to all of the students who earned silver keys or honorable mentions. Our silver key winners were 10th grade students Isabella Arocho and Ava Gately, 11th grade student Jean Leonardi, and seniors Miguel Colon, Sebastian Confident, Ethan Castro, Jaden Seal, and Elijah Carter. Congratulations also to alto singer Naya Joseph, French horn player Roy Rattler III, and tuba player Elijah Roman for being selected to represent BHS at the Massachusetts Music Educators Association All-State Festival Concert at Symphony Hall in Boston on March 28th and 29th. I also have a few great updates from the Downey School this evening. Assistant Principal Mrs. Colburn has worked collaboratively with bus drivers of the Downey students in order to increase appropriate behavior on the buses. So each week, the bus drivers fill out a weekly bus behavior report that is turned into Mrs. Colburn on Fridays. And additionally, to promote positive behavior, the drivers are asked to pick a bus student of the week, which is a student exhibiting model bus behavior. That student's name is announced over the intercom on Friday mornings, and they are awarded a bus buck, which gives them an automatic entry to the Downey School store where they can pick an item of their choosing that they buy with their bus bucks. If the whole bus is well behaved, then their efforts are represented on the bus behavior bulletin board, which you see up top at the left. And I think this is just one of the examples of the many positive behavior interventions that our schools implement. Downey's very own, also Mrs. Wakama, I said that wrong, Wakama, celebrated, Wakama, I practiced it today and then said it wrong, celebrated Lunar New Year with all of her library classes. Downey's 5th grade peer leaders helped put together the symbolic dragon and were able to parade it around the cafeteria during lunches for all of the students to enjoy. So the students did an amazing job spreading joy during Lunar New Year to all of the students at lunchtime. And then finally, Principal DeFalco and Vice Principal Colburn have developed something called the Restorative Rock, which is part of our efforts for restorative justice to help our students who are experiencing repetitive peer conflict. So there's a table at lunch, which you see down there, where students devote their lunchtime to sit together and work with Mrs. Colburn and their peer on empathy, self-advocacy skills, peer relationships, communication skills, positive versus negative talk, and the impact of words, hearing, and understanding the perspectives of others, along with any other clear patterns or behaviors noted during conflicts. So once the work has been completed and both or all of the students have restored the harm created, they are able to pick a rock, design it, with add their initials, and then place the rock in the restored jar that you might be able to see. And this helps students wash away the past and symbolizes a fresh start for them moving forward. And again, just another example of the very intentional work we are doing in order to ensure that our schools are welcoming places for our students. And at the Raymond, grade 2 launch students in Mrs. Winman's class got to explore the sounds of trash in a fun classroom activity where they turned tissue boxes, paper towel rolls, and other items that were donated by Raymond staff members into instruments like guitars, trombones, maracas, and drums. They also had the opportunity to develop their language and literacy skills by talking about their experience and writing about it. We would also like to thank WCVB Boston and Massasoit Community College's Digital Media Arts Department for hosting 40 students from Brockton High last Friday. Our students participated in a panel discussion on media literacy featuring WCVB reporters Jennifer Panate and Ted Wayman, along with photojournalists Josh Gaines, digital producer and reporter Leanna Scicchetti, and news director Margaret Cronin. Following the discussion, the students enjoyed a hands-on tour of the media arts program, which included visits to the television and podcasting studios. The workshop is part of WCVB's Media Mentors initiative, aimed at identifying and providing hands-on experience for the next generation of media professionals. The committee also has several donations to accept tonight, including one from WCVB, but this one that you'll see actually will come for formal acceptance at our next meeting because it came along a little later than the agenda. But Ocean State Job Lot in Avon has several Boxer alumni on their team, and they generously donated a $200 gift card to the BHS Urban Landscape and Horticulture Program, which students will use on a to-be-written wish list of in-store items to support their program. In addition, Ocean State's corporate foundation is donating over 500 seed packets of flowers, herbs, vegetables, and perennials that students will have the opportunity to work with. So thank you again to Ocean State Job Lot and teacher Ellery American for making this happen. February is Black History Month, and while there are several events and lessons happening throughout the district, I did want to highlight two that are happening during school vacation week with special screenings of films that honor Black heroes and their contributions to STEM fields and American history. On February 18th at 10 a.m., there will be a screening of a documentary on the Tuskegee Airmen, and on February 20th at 10 a.m., we will be screening Hidden Figures, which tells the story of the Black women who made enormous contributions to the U.S. efforts in the space race. Both screenings are here at BHS and will be accompanied by panel discussions featuring Dean Richard Harris from Northeastern School of Engineering, Dr. Jean Davis Street, Dean of the School of Business and School of Aviation at Bridgewater State, Dr. Johnny L. Worthy, Aerospace Engineer at MIT's Lincoln Laboratory, and our own Deputy Superintendent Sharon Walder, and also Rashawn Hall, President and Executive Director at the Eastern Mass Urban League. We ask that those planning to attend please RSVP. The link is on the screen. It's probably going to go by too fast, but this link has also been shared on BPS's Facebook page. And just a quick update on a data point. In the first 2 weeks of January of 2025, our Brockton Public Schools educators screened almost 5,000 students using the DIBELS assessment to measure their acquisition of literacy skills and to capture invaluable data that assists us in planning for learning. At the school and district level, this data also gives us insight into the effectiveness of our recently adopted high-quality instructional materials. So we are in our second year of full implementation of our ELA curriculum, Wonders, and our aligned materials and routines, Enhanced Core Reading Instruction, or ECRI. And what a difference a year has made. For example, in kindergarten last year, from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, the percent of students who scored well below benchmark unfortunately increased by 1%, and the percent of students who were at or above benchmark decreased by 1%. This year, however, we are extremely proud to share that from the beginning of this school year to the mid-year point, the portion of students well below benchmark is down 6%, and the portion of students below benchmark is down 3%. At the same time, the share of students at benchmark is up 7%, and above benchmark is up 2% since September. And we're happy to provide a more, yes, I see claps from some of the educators in the corner. So we're very proud of these gains. Again, they just demonstrate that the work that we have been doing, the high instructional quality materials that we have adopted as part of DESE's support for us with our MOU are all paying off, and then of course the hard work of all of our educators. And then finally, this is on the agenda a little bit later, but I just wanted to provide an update. As you are likely aware, there was some concern and confusion late last month around a directive by the administration to freeze federal grants. And generally speaking, that did create some concern about potential impacts to our operations. The memo was ultimately rescinded shortly thereafter, so for the time being, at least, BPS is not impacted. But the guidance we've received is that some of the grants we may get may have been impacted in the same way that they would have been when the federal government shuts down and certain expenditures are affected because they were dispersed closer to real time. So impact aid, Head Start, and school meals funding, for example. But the funds that we particularly have would not have actually been impacted by this policy. But again, we want to make sure that we are remaining in compliance. So we have received directives and we have received communications from the state level just to make sure that we are doing everything that we are supposed to be doing. Now here in Brockton, we've already kind of launched an effort to make sure that our grants are exactly as they should be, that we are looking into all of our finances. So I think we are actually in a good space. So I just wanted to be very clear that there is no impact to BPS at the moment, but we are keeping caught up on any guidance or directives as they come, and we will certainly rely on support from DESE to interpret actions in real time. They are certainly monitoring the situation, and as soon as all of the communications came out, they were directly on it, communicating with us about what it would mean, and then communicating with us when it was something that wasn't going to impact us. So I will, again, make sure to keep you all updated for this period of time. There's no impact to what our day-to-day operations. But it was on the agenda. I know it was submitted, so I wanted to just provide a little bit of context, and I'm happy to do so also during the item itself. And at this time, I actually would like to invite, well, maybe not invite up, maybe I'll give her a microphone, but we had received a request from one of our school committee members to get more information on something that you all hear about very often, which is our students who do require homeless supports and who fall under our McKinney-Vento grant. So we do have our director of that department here with us today, Shauna Gray, to provide us with some information on that. And we're going to let her sit right over there. You need this, right?
I don't know, do I? Do I do it?
Is up there, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to do it?
No, I can do it. Thank you. It's the only sock I have that will fit over the cast. Thank you, Madam Superintendent, Mr. Mayor, and members of the school committee. Thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Shauna Gray, and I am your homeless and foster care coordinator through the McKinney-Vento Act. I'm here to speak to you tonight about McKinney-Vento and educational stability. So, this is sensitive. So, just to begin, a little background on McKinney-Vento. The program was initially established by Stuart B. McKinney and Bruce Vento in 1987. As you can see, it was initially titled the Homeless Assistance Act. It's had several iterations and reauthorizations over the years. It's now referred to as the McKinney-Vento Act, and it provides funds from the federal government down to the state education departments, who in turn pass those funds onto the local districts, all with the intention of ensuring that students experiencing homelessness have equal access to the same appropriate and free public education as their peers. And so once the states receive that funding, all states are required to have a McKinney-Vento liaison. And so the role of the school districts in supporting educational stability under a McKinney-Vento has basically 10 legal duties that are required of each of the homeless liaisons, and I've put them up here. You can see all of those really center around promoting educational stability, parent education about their rights and responsibilities relative to McKinney-Vento, and the coordination of enrollment and service referrals. So why is educational stability important? Well, as you can see from this slide, there's many obvious reasons for promoting educational stability, but most notable is preserving the climate and culture of the school community to sustain academic achievement. And this is just a look at who is impacted by high mobility. And as you can see from this slide, high mobility or frequent, starting and stopping or disruptions in school and academic and education stability, high mobility affects everyone. This slide just takes a look at some of the consequences of high mobility. And as you can see here, attendance is a challenge, can be a challenge. Students can experience behavior or health-related issues, and over the long term, students experience greater poverty. Disruptions in education negatively affect everything that we're trying to prevent through our rigorous and high academic standards. Young people, studies have shown recently that young people with less than a high school diploma or GED were 4.5 times more likely to report homelessness than their peers who completed high school, and only a third as likely to be enrolled in a four-year college. So we can infer from this data that high mobility experienced during childhood and adolescence can have long-term implications for future economic stability. So who are our highly mobile students? As you can see from this slide, highly mobile students can be students experiencing foster care placements. They can be students experiencing homelessness, students who are children of active duty military members of the uniformed services, and they can be students of parents who are migrant agricultural workers. And so I'm going to have you take just a little bit closer look at how we define those. So for students who are experiencing foster care placements, those students are defined as having been placed in an out-of-home care situation for a 24-hour period, and for whom the Department of Children and Families has the primary responsibility. Foster care settings can include residential programs, treatment programs or group homes, foster and kinship foster homes, which would be a placement with a family member other than the parent or guardian, emergency residences, and also pre-adoptive homes. For students experiencing homelessness, they are defined as those who are lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And as you can see from the slide, this includes students living in shelters, students living in campgrounds or parks or other public spaces, sharing the housing of others due to economic hardship or loss of housing. This is typically referred to as doubling up. And you see here, there has to be some type of triggering event that caused the lack of housing. This can also be students that are migrant students who are living in any of these arrangements, and then unaccompanied homeless youth and preschoolers. Unaccompanied youth are those students for whom they are not living with the parent or guardian and for whom we do not have a caregiver affidavit on file. This next slide just shows you a quick snapshot of what the homeless education data looks like nationally. This is based on the 2022 to 23 school year, and as you can see here, there was nearly 1.4 million children and youth experiencing homelessness across the country during that year. Of those, nearly 124,000 were unaccompanied youth. These figures represent a 25% increase over the school year of 2020 to 2021, and a 14% increase in the 2022 to 23 school year. So, we can see that youth and students experiencing homelessness continues to be a growing problem. The pie chart on the right shows you where the breakdown of the primary nighttime residences of these students and families are. And you can see here that the majority of families fall under the category of being doubled up. That's sharing the housing of others, followed by living in shelters at 11%, hotels and motels. And I guess thankfully, the smallest percentage are those that are unsheltered. Those would be people that are literally maybe living on the street or living in their cars. So this takes a look at our migrant students, and for the purposes of McKinney-Vento, migrant students are those that are defined as children of parents or guardians who are migratory or agricultural workers, migratory fish workers, or migratory food and fish processors who've moved within the preceding 36 months. It's important to note that the term migrant here is in reference to agricultural workers. I think that there can be sometimes a tendency to conflate migrant workers with, or migrant with immigrants, and that's not the same. So many of the families arriving into the country or into our district may be more appropriately referred to as newcomers rather than migrants. I'll look at our military-connected students. So these are students who are children of active duty members of the uniformed services. And there's some definitions for active duty and uniformed services. They can also be students who are family members or children of injured veterans or medically discharged or who have retired within 1 year. And so once we've identified who our highly mobile students are, we need to think about enrolling them in school. And for the purposes of McKinney-Vento, McKinney-Vento requires that enrollment occur regardless of whether we have all the typical documents and paperwork that are required for other students. Once the students are identified, they have to be enrolled in and have full and equal access to all school resources and activities. And so with enrollment comes the question of school of origin. And school of origin refers to the school that the student last attended. Depending on the student's situation, the school of origin can be in the same town or in another town. Foster students are required to enroll in the town where they are residing once they complete the last grade of the school that they are attending. So what that means essentially is for a student who maybe, let's say, attending one of our middle schools but residing in a foster placement in Fall River, once that student graduates from 8th grade, if they're still fostering in Fall River, they would then be required to register for 9th grade in Fall River Public Schools. However, to promote educational stability, students should remain enrolled in their school of origin whenever possible, unless it's decided to be in their best interest to enroll locally. Oh, sorry about that. So, attending the school of origin often requires transportation, as you might imagine. And under McKinney-Vento, transportation must be comparable to what's being provided to their peers. It must meet the state's pupil transportation requirements. For McKinney-Vento students, it must be provided through the end of the year when the student becomes housed, or if they become housed permanently. And for foster care students, it's the responsibility of the district of origin transporting them to and from. It also means that if it's required in order for the student to remain in the school of origin, it can be transportation within the district, across district lines, across state lines, with the exception of Rhode Island, because they apparently only allow students to move within their state. They won't transfer students out. For McKinney-Vento students, it's the shared responsibility of the district where the child is enrolled, as well as the district where the child is sheltered. And in the case of special education students, it's covered by the district that's fiscally responsible. So once a McKinney-Vento eligibility is determined, once again, students have the right to all services through the end of the school year, regardless of a change in their living situation mid-year. So that essentially means if we are transporting a family, again, I'll use Fall River as an example, if we're transporting a family from Fall River, a student from Fall River, and that family becomes housed in that community or in another community, and they are no longer technically considered eligible for McKinney-Vento services, they are entitled to continue to receiving that transportation and to remain enrolled with us through the end of the school year, through June. It's important to note also that there's no travel time restriction for McKinney-Vento students as there is in special education students. Special education typically restricts the travel time for 1 hour each way for school. Under McKinney-Vento, that doesn't apply. So as you can see, transportation costs and coordination for McKinney-Vento students in a district of our size is an enormous undertaking, both logistically and financially, due to the frequency of the mobility as well as the size of our population. I apologize for the smallness of this slide, but I wanted to provide you just with a snapshot of what our district homelessness numbers look like. And this slide is taken from our enrollment and McKinney-Vento data as of the end of November. I had hoped to get you a more current information, but I ran that report earlier this month, and it was after the time that I had to submit this presentation to you. So I can tell you, so this snapshot shows that our district homeless numbers district-wide, we had back in November, end of November, we had about 927 students out of our roughly a little over 15,000. That represents about 6% of our student population. I can tell you, after running the report this month, that figure has gone up to a little bit closer to 960. And I expect it will continue to grow as it literally changes every day. So I guess the upside is that I think for a district of our size, to have only 6% of our student population affected in this way is not terrible, but obviously any student affected by homelessness or foster placements or other disruptions to their educational stability is too much. And so this is just an overview of what our McKinney-Vento program looks like in the district. So I have about $50,000 right now that is funded through DESE under their FC 310 grant program. That money right now is being used to provide resource coordinators at Brockton High School who are helping to oversee the number of students there, assist them with access to resources, access to academic tutoring, allowing them to educate them about their rights and connect them to other potential community resources as needs arise. We are supporting through a partnership with the Charity Guild and Blessings in a Backpack. These are two organizations that provide food to our students and families through one through the Brockton High School food pantry, and also Blessings in a Backpack provides food to some of our elementary school and a couple of our middle schools. Both of these programs are servicing about 600 students each. And so a portion of this McKinney-Vento money is going toward the support of that in order to fund access to food for some of our students. These programs provide food for the students to take home on the weekends so that they are not missing meals between Friday at the end of the school day and Monday before they come back for breakfast. We are piloting this year small after-school tutoring programs, again, in the name of trying to close academic achievement gaps. So a small program launched at Brockton High School, at Kennedy, and also at the Davis that we are trying to get off the ground. And this involves teachers staying after school to work explicitly with students that are on those schools' McKinney-Vento homeless and foster care rosters. We are sponsoring several students for the school vacation weeks through our Smart Start Extended Day programs. I funded about 8 students in December for the December vacation week, and we have another 8 or 9 students slated for February, and I hope that number will increase for April. I'm funding transportation to the after-school program at the Davis, and that is because when they surveyed the parents and the students who were participating in that program, majority of the students' families indicated that they wouldn't be able to pick up their students at the later end date, at end time, which is 4 p.m. And they happen to live within the 1.5-mile radius of school. because it's winter and it's dark out, we didn't want to have those kids walk home. They're elementary students, so we're funding a bus to drive this group of students home. I also have some funds available to assist parents and guardians with access, should they need it, to attend school meetings or school events. And then we purchased supplemental school uniforms for all of the uniform schools to have on hand, so that their McKinney-Vento students would be able to make sure that they have access to all the required uniforms without worrying about the cost. Some future program goals or wishes. I had the opportunity in November to attend a conference in Orlando. It was all about McKinney-Vento and homeless and foster care experiences, and I got to hear from a lot of other school districts around the country in terms of what their program looks like, and it gave me a lot of insight for what we could be doing in Brockton, or what I'd like to be doing in Brockton. So just some future thoughts here around this position. Right now, it's a singular person, but as you can imagine, the volume of McKinney-Vento and foster care students in our district really merits consideration, I think, of a reorganization or a reconsideration of a singular liaison to maybe an office that has several other elements that work together to service the students and the families, and to maintain the accuracy of our eligibility data and our intervention efficacy. So to that end, I'd love to see a database of some kind, either one that we purchase or one that we build ourselves. I saw a great demo of one that I'd love to get my hands on. But we need, in my opinion, a database to be able to really capture the impact of the interventions that we're trying to put together for these specific students. I want to be able to report on the impact of the interventions, the consumer usage, academic achievement, attendance rates, all of those things relative to this specific population. It would be helpful to have a point person in each school who would be able to communicate back to me, the accuracy of their enrollment and their McKinney-Vento eligible students. So maintaining the accuracy of the eligibility statuses has been somewhat challenging due to, one, the number of students in every school, but also because it's difficult to know really what goes on in all the schools. And so my opinion on this is that the schools know their students best. They know their students on the McKinney-Vento list, as well as their general student population. And so it would make more sense to have a point person in each school who can report on status updates, the accuracies of the list, and report that back, so that I can maintain the accuracy of the overall data for the district-wide. Many schools that I met with at this conference had more of a family case management model, which was really appealing. Ideally, I'd love to see caseworkers who would be able to provide direct service or direct care to our students and families living in these conditions, and they would be responsible really for making referrals, providing updates, providing emotional support, and just helping them navigate the access to many of the resources that are available, not only in our district, but also in the community. With regard to closing academic achievement gaps, the School on Wheels offers tutoring in many shelters in and around the Brockton area, but it doesn't have a presence in all of the facilities where many of our students are currently housed. And so providing academic support to, again, this select group of students, whether it be in shelters or in expanded academic opportunities after school, would help to close those academic achievement gaps. And then as far as reported wishes for all schools, so one of the first things that I did in stepping into this role was I reached out to all the schools and went out and spoke to any of them that would have me. One question I had was, what is their understanding of McKinney-Vento? because I know in all the years that I've been here, I didn't have a great understanding of it. So I wanted to know from other schools what their experience and understanding was. And then also I wanted to know from them, like, what are their greatest concerns relative to their students that are affected by homelessness and foster care placements. And so the number one uniform request or need identified by the schools that I spoke with was having access to a clothing or toiletry closet. Specifically, they identified having access to socks, underwear, leggings, t-shirts, sweatshirts, etc. was a huge, incredible need. And those, school surveys really revealed how inappropriate, soiled, or damaged clothing can contribute to absenteeism and also to decreased social emotional engagement. The number two need was food, and more specifically, there were many wishes to expand the Blessings in a Backpack program to all of the elementary schools and middle schools, because I think word of mouth travels and other schools hear about it, something that they don't have, but they identify there's a need there. So persistent hunger contributes to an inability to focus. It contributes to fatigue and irritability, and all of that impacts academic motivation and achievement. So access to food, I think, is important. And then many of the schools identified that they take up collections often from the staff to cover the costs associated with certain field trips for their in order to allow their McKinney-Vento students to attend. And the last piece was just around education and access to transportation to after-school activities. So many McKinney-Vento students, we've discovered, won't stay after school because they can't get home after hours, or because they think that, if they're getting home too late, they won't be able to access public transportation or any other transportation, or in the case of students, maybe being transported out of the district because of where they're sheltered, they think that they're not eligible, and that's not the case. They're not eligible to get a ride home. So I would argue that we need to think a little bit more creatively about transportation for eligible students who may reside, especially within the 1.5 to 2 mile radius, to accommodate their access to extended day activities and to extracurricular events. And so in closing, I leave you with this poem. I encountered this at the recent conference that I attended. I found it moving, and it really made me reflect on the effort that can be involved in readiness to learn. The poem is entitled "'Cause I Ain't Got a Pencil" by Joshua T. Dickerson. And it says, "I woke myself up because we ain't got an alarm clock, dug in the dirty clothes basket because ain't nobody washed my uniform, brushed my hair and teeth in the dark because the lights ain't on, even got my baby sister ready because my mama wasn't home. Got us both to school on time to eat us a good breakfast. Then when I got to class, the teacher fussed because I ain't got a pencil." So like I said, that just really resonated with me because it made me think about some of the things that maybe we don't consider when students come to school so-called unprepared and ready to learn. Thank you.
Members of the committee, any questions? I'll start with Ms. Oliver, please.
That's hard to follow after that poem. Sorry if I might get a little bit emotional. Thank you for this presentation. It's an eye-opener, especially for everybody to really get the knowledge and information how this program is run. And it's just heartbreaking to know that the numbers keeps going up, that we have homeless students that attends us, our schools, and it's not getting any better. And I truly, truly want to thank the educators, the counselors, and yourself also for all the hard work you're doing to support our students. I definitely like the wish list. I think every school should definitely have a closet where the residents of the city can donate to make sure every child has a clean clothes, socks, shoes, jacket, and also school supplies so they don't get bullied. They don't have to suffer emotional, mental trauma just knowing already where they're living. because we don't know the history and we don't know what's going on at home or in the shelter because it's not safe. And just to think as a mother of a child being in a shelter or even homeless in the street, it's heartbreaking that we live in this country and we still have students that are homeless. I do like the idea of having a laundry area for our students to bring their clothes to wash because they are coming, to school with dirty clothes and they're suffering bullying. And I think that's a way we can definitely help out. Definitely get more caseworkers, counselors to help us out and see how we can support our students every day, because this is not easy. It's not getting any better. And I like also the fact that you explain the word migrants. It's a taboo, and it looked very, we're supporting the immigrants, we're supporting the newcomers. So I'm glad that you explained that. What is that all about? I had just one question regarding the students that's coming in about medical records. Do we, do enroll them, but eventually do we get the medical records, make sure they're all vaccinated, make sure they're healthy also, just to, that everybody's basically following the policies when it comes to vaccinations and medical records?
Yes, there is a process to assist the families to obtain all the necessary documentation. With McKinney-Vento, that if a family doesn't have immediate access to that documentation, it's not meant to be a barrier to enrollment. But we do work with them to try to get all the documents. And if they don't have the documents, we have a connection with Neighborhood Health Center and the Board of Health next door. So I know a Parent and Registration Center is really very active in helping to help people get access to vaccinations and things like that.
And also like medical treatments, like dentists also, because I know a lot of the students, we got to also think about their health when it comes to, dental work, because that's also caused a lot of health issues when it comes to dental work. And we have a lot of students that might not have glasses, need visions, exams, to make sure they also have that provided to them so they can be able to focus and be, focus on their education and get the proper education too.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Mrs. Sullivan, please.
Thank you for the presentation. So you're the person that follows whether a child doesn't become homeless anymore, because you said something about that if a child isn't homeless anymore, then they come off of the...
Yes, so I think we do a really good job of identifying students who are affected by homelessness or foster care, and I am working on doing as well a job of updating that status when it changes. I don't know that that was always the case with my predecessor. And it's challenging because of the number of students that we have. This is why I'm saying it to me, I can generate the McKinney-Vento list each month. I send that out to the schools, and then I really lean into the schools and ask them to take a look at their students and let me know if there's any status changes. So I can tell you that since I've taken this position, I have taken all that feedback from the schools and been very diligent about updating the list so that when we are aware of status changes, it's documented, reflected. The thing that makes it confusing, I think, is that because McKinney-Vento students remain eligible through the end of the school year, a school list might look like they have more students that are affected or eligible than they actually have in that moment, because they're still kind of listed on the list, even though technically their living situation may have changed this month, for example. They're going to still show up on that list through June.
Right, because I would think that some of their situations change during the year.
Yes, yes.
So you know about things like that?
I'm trying to know as much as I can.
It seems like it would be like a never-ending job to
It's a
have to find
constant
out that.
moving target, and it's and it changes every day, and so
I would think
that's
that
why
it
we have
would.
to lean into the schools to help convey the accuracy of the information of
So
the students.
how long have you been doing?
I took this position in September.
Okay. Nice to meet you. I haven't formally met you.
Yeah.
So my next question is about the cost. How much money that we're getting from the federal government for McKinney-Vento students? And is it enough to cover the students that we have? Or do we have to supplement, since busing is a big issue with the Brockton Public Schools. Could we have like a breakdown of what exactly they're giving us and what exactly it covers? So that we would know and the public would know that if we're getting enough funding from the federal government, or are we having to supplement with taxpayer money to do this?
So I have to apologize. I do not have the figures on what the actual breakdown is from the state to the district. I think there may be two different elements here, though, at play. One is that for McKinney-Vento transportation, the state does provide a certain percentage of reimbursement back to the district. Because I don't control the transportation, I don't have those exact figures for you. The other piece, though, is the funding that we receive from the state through the grants, and that's, quite honestly, that's right now. I don't know what the implications are going to be under this current administration with regard to what kind of impact, the cuts that are being made by the current executive branch are going to have on things like McKinney-Vento and programs to the states. But with regard to servicing our student population, that figure is based on a formula that DESE provides based on the number of students that are in your McKinney-Vento program. And so for this school year, that figure for us represented $50,000. I can tell you that $50,000 absolutely is not enough money to service. I only presented to you the information from McKinney-Vento, which is about 960 students right now. We also have another nearly 70 that are in foster care. So, to be able to effectively service all the needs of those students and to really provide things like supplemental academic resources to close academic achievement gaps that are experienced or incurred because of disrupted attendance, we definitely need more funding to be able to provide resources to target those specific kids. So $50,000 isn't enough, but I'm trying to spread the wealth across the districts, and I'm trying to at least make a dent in that.
So we did have a person that did this before? And so you just took on the job in September, so there was
Yes.
a person that did the same thing you're doing before you started doing it?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we knew who that was. Karen McCarthy, okay.
Right. So, hi, everybody. Kara McCarthy was both Title I as well as McKinney-Vento. And at her retirement, we sort of divided the role into two, and Shauna joined us this fall and has been doing wonderfully so far.
Well, thank you for all you do. But if we could somehow get some sort of breakdown on the funding, because transportation is a big issue, and I think the school committee needs to know exactly what the federal government is giving us, and is it enough to cover the children that we have? Because I would think that this would change every day how many children we have.
So yes, and so part of these presentations, I think, are in preparation for some upcoming transportation presentations we're going to be doing, as well as our budget presentations that we're going to be doing. So we want to sort of set the groundwork for what is to come, because we use terms like McKinney-Vento, or we say things like that. We want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as we talk about what those costs are. So Shauna is correct that we do get a reimbursement for transportation. It does not cover the entire amount, but that is something we'll be discussing moving forward as well. As far as, and then we do have the DESE grants, but as far as the funding for students, we know that those grants and those reimbursements aren't enough, but they are part of our overall funding formula. So if they are captured by October 1st, then they are accounted into the funding for our budget. So when we see our budget go up, a lot of times it is because our enrollment is going up. The problem is not just with our students who fall under, the McKinney-Vento category, but just in general, we know that after October 1st, we receive many students, right? So that's why next year's budget might be more appropriate than this year's for who we are currently serving, but it's not a perfect formula, and I don't know that there exists a perfect formula to make for the state to make a budget a year ahead of time and try to make sure they're allocating resources amongst districts appropriately when they have to look at some data point, and the data point that they're looking at is our October 1st enrollment. So whoever is caught in that enrollment is who we are being funded for. So when we are presenting the budget to all of you, and presenting the increases that we may have received, a lot of that is as a result of not only the higher enrollment, but the categories of students and the student needs that we are serving. So there is an algorithm that it's not just based on a one-to-one, how many students do you serve, but it's about the population of students you serve as well. And so when the state is coming up with our budget, it is based on those kinds of nuances. So again, not a perfect formula, but that is how we are funded as a district.
So if we could have, like, what that grant is that we get, if we could get the figures, like when we do the budget, if we could have that broken down, it would be good if we know how much is the federal funding, how much is it for that
So we'll
grant?
be going through all of, like, what
Okay.
is net school spending, what is the Chapter 70 funding, so we'll explain all of the different
Okay.
categories of funds that we receive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Any additional, Ms. Azak, please?
Thank you, Shauna. It was, honestly, this is the first time being on the committee that I've seen it broken down like this. So I just wanted to commend you. That great job, especially for those that are watching. It helps them understand the McKinney-Vento, because we do use, during a lot of our meetings, we'll reference McKinney-Vento, or we'll reference Chapter 70, or we'll reference different funding that we get. But the way that you broke that down really does help a lot of the community that is watching understand. And then, again, I'm with Miss Oliver on the wish list and helping out our students. Our community always wants to step up and help our students. A lot of people are out shopping. They can grab a little extra here, there. And that would be something that I think if we can reach out to our schools and designate, whether it's the PTA, PTO, or someone at a school that can just, like I said, I'm out shopping. You can always grab extra toothpaste, toothbrushes, toiletries, socks, especially when we know it's going to help our students. Now, when I do the backpacks and the coats, I see the families and I see the need, and it breaks your heart. And sometimes people are like, oh, why are you doing that? I go, I'm out here because it's 20 degrees out and these kids need their coats. So you have community members that want to step up and help. And the same with blessings in a bag. I've been able to help out for the past few times. But that's a wonderful program, and just seeing the community come together. And now they do that at Brockton High. And it's a great program. And I always wondered why some of the schools weren't on there, especially some of our neediest schools were not on that list. So if we can help them with that, and same with the Charity Guild, having that room, it's very discreet for our students that need things. So again, I always say reach out to the community. People are generous. People want to help. But if we can just maybe we can create something online where if someone wants to donate, and it can go right to toiletries or right to supplies, and we can maybe disperse it to the schools. There's ways we can do things. We have to be cautious, but I just want to thank you though for breaking that down the way you did.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azak. Any Mr. Gomes, followed by Mr. Vega, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I truly appreciated it. It was very informative and also humbling. I really enjoyed that poem. There's a lot of work that we need to do. I don't think this is a one-person team parcel. We can start by looking at that. I have a few questions. One is, how are you currently reaching out to family, parents, caregivers of our McKinney-Vento population? Like, how are we putting the information out there that we have someone that can help them out?
So I have been working on developing some signage or posters to sort of marketing materials that I would like to see posted at all the schools. We, under McKinney-Vento, one of those 10 duties of the liaisons is to provide marketing in the spaces where the families reside or are habiting. So in addition to schools, we need to think about like laundromats or, you know, the convenience stores, things like that. So I've been working on a poster that is translated into French, Spanish, and Portuguese, and it has basic information identifying if you are experiencing, or if your family's living in a car or shelter or doubled up with other people, here are some resources that you're entitled to, and here's the person you can speak to in a school. I haven't released those yet because I'm still building them,
Okay.
but that's a piece. The other thing that I'm doing is the Department of Ed, ADESI, has some resources that you can download and share regarding parents' rights and responsibilities. And so I've taken that, again, put my information on it, and I've attached that to an eligibility letter that I've created that now goes out to families we are newly identifying them, and as they're being enrolled in our McKinney-Vento program. I now send out a letter that explains to parents what McKinney-Vento is and what their rights and responsibilities are relative to McKinney-Vento, with a big emphasis on, if your situation changes, you need to notify me immediately so that I can keep that list accurate, because we have to report that data to the state at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Do you happen to have the numbers of like students within and out of district for for the same population?
Actually, I just had a meeting with transportation earlier today. I want to say this transportation. That's really a question for transportation, since they coordinate the to and from transportation for the students to get to in school. I believe the number that I received today was about 165 students that we are transporting from out of district into the district. And then there was another. Yes, so there's 900 students that are on our rosters enrolled in our district. Of those, forgive me, I don't have 100%. It just came through today in an email this afternoon. I want to say it was like it was closer to 200. I want to say it was closer to 200 students that are sheltered outside of the district that we're transporting in. And then there was another 100 or so that are special education students that are outside the district who are also McKinney-Vento students.
Okay. Makes
But
sense.
I could get back to you on those exact numbers, but it just came in like an hour or two before I came here
I
tonight.
appreciate it. And if you could incorporate into those as well, the ones that are sheltered, unsheltered, or foster.
Yeah, so actually, that I think I did bring with me. So if we look at our, if I refer you back to the slide that I had put up around the national data, that pie chart. I looked quickly at our data as of January with our 960 students, and of those 690, which is approximately like 73%, fall into the category of doubled up, which is very similar to this. We have another 206 in shelter, which represents about 22%. Again, looking at national data, you can see shelters represent the second largest portion. Hotels, there was about 33 students, which reflects 3%. Unsheltered, 14, and about 1%. And then I was missing some data I discovered on where they are for 14 students. So I will find out where those students are and update that.
Okay, thank you.
And I have identified only 8 students so far this year that whose families have informed me that they have obtained permanent shelter and will be coming off the list at the end of June.
Oh, okay, perfect. And then I also do agree with Ms. Oliver and Ms. Azak as far as the closet. I think it's a great idea. I do work with some clients in different, this is at college level, but they have food pantry within the schools. They have toiletry and clothing closet for people to go in and pick up items. I saw the second item on the list was also laundry, if accessibility?
A number of the schools spoke about how wonderful it would be if they could have a washer and dryer that they could make available to the families. And I know all the schools have a washer and dryer in the kitchens, but that's not necessarily to be used by everybody else. So I don't know if that's possible, but I found that interesting point to note that multiple schools that I spoke to referenced the wish for a washer and dryer to be added so that their families could take care of laundry. And I myself, in my years working more directly with students, had many a conversation about students not coming to school because their clothes weren't clean and they were embarrassed by that.
Definitely. And if that's not possible, at least something like laundry passes, you know, that we can give out to students or to the family to try to help out. Last question, have we looked at any other grants available?
I am always looking at grants, yes.
Anything?
Not at the moment, no. This is, historically, grant season is March and April, so more things could come out. But
Okay.
yes, I'm always looking at grants.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Vega, please.
That's great. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I think, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room, what I really appreciate is that what you're doing is highlighting what homelessness can look like in different ways. The whole idea of doubling up is something that I don't think is always fully appreciated. The damaging impact that it can have. For the grace of God, my family was always close to experiencing homelessness, and we were regularly the place that other family members doubled up at. And so when I think back to my own experience in elementary and middle schools, where I was getting ready for school in the morning, but my cousin, we lived in Queens, my cousin from the Bronx was not. My cousins were spending considerable amounts of time not in school while I was, right? And as we all know, those intermittent gaps lead to very serious, learning gaps. So I think, bringing to the table that there's more than one category of homelessness, especially as, the city's in the middle of a discussion around how we address our unhoused population in the city.
If I could just add, I'm realizing I neglected to mention that the point of how McKinney-Vento students are defined, right, lacking fixed, adequate, and regular housing, it's important to note that there's a difference between that and how the federal government defines homelessness, which is broken down really into 4 categories: literally homeless, imminent risk of homelessness, homeless under federal statutes, and fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence. Those distinctions are important to note because it shifts or creates confusion sometimes in the conversation when people are talking about homelessness, because the McKinney-Vento definition is very, very different than what we typically would see and associate when we think of people experiencing homelessness, like living on the street.
And when we think about that data point you shared about homeless or highly mobile students being 4 times more likely to enter homelessness after graduating high school or leaving school, when we talk about solutions for unhoused populations in cities, recognizing that there's no short term, there's no quick fix, but we need to start investing in the long term, because this 6% that we're supporting in school right now can turn into a much larger group of adults who are struggling with these same things in our city.
Right.
I also am very hopeful. I know this is very this can be kind of depressing to talk about, but what I'm hopeful about is that what I'm hearing from Ms. Gray, what I'm hearing in my discussions with the superintendent, is I'm hearing numbers. I'm hearing data. And with data, we have the ability to make data-informed decisions, right? We're hearing that 6% of our entire student population fits into the McKinney-Vento definition. We're getting a sense of what percent of that are SPED students, We're getting a sense of what % of those students are out of state placements. And with that, we're getting a sense of what our costs are. And while we recognize that things are going to change from year to year, with data, we should now have the ability to at least predict averages. You know, at least say that by this time of the year, we may be seeing this. Next year, given the last 3 years of growth that we've seen in this population, we should be able to anticipate that this much will be needed for transportation costs or other costs that are associated with this. So I appreciate what Ms. Sullivan brought up earlier. I'm very hopeful because what I'm hearing for the first time are data points. And I think that's going to be the key to getting our arms around transportation. It's not solely about our McKinney-Vento students, obviously, but it's going to be a huge piece. The one question that I have is, you know, when we talk about these McKinney-Vento funds, these are state, it sounds like a combination of state and federal funds. And maybe this is, you know, this is a point maybe for later in the agenda, but like, is there any reason to be concerned that these federal funds might be frozen or blocked from getting to us?
I think based on what I've been seeing in the news relative to the current administration, I think there's a lot of concern that programs such as this can be impacted.
Right. Yeah,
Not just by the grant funds, but by federal acknowledgement of the need.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Vice Chairman, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few things. I mean, we've been dealing with homelessness. It's not just the students. There's, you know, adults that fall into that. We have a big issue here in the city, but it's not just in the city, but it's globally. When just on some of the services, when we talk about providing meals to these students and families, and I know we're working with Charity, where does Chartwell's fall into this mechanism? The reason why I'm asking is that obviously we have a contract with them, and not every student takes, eat, breakfast or lunch. There's meals that are left over, so I don't think that, I hope not, and if it is, that we have to take a deeper dive into it, that we're not throwing our food away in the district, because we're paying for that. So we got to take a look into that. Is that if we're providing these, these meals, I think there should be some bags of lunch that are sitting at that table when these kids are going home, that they can actually grab it themselves. Because we all know it's just because, we're looking at the homeless, but there are kids that do come to the schools that don't identify as being homeless, that they have a home, that do have food insecurities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have to make sure that, I would love to see or implement something that we're not throwing away food, and making sure that, kids have the ability to grab a bag, a hot meal or a cold meal, and take it home with them. So if we can take a deeper dive into that. The other piece is that this is a lot of work. And, I hope that you're not just a one-person show as it's growing. And how does that look? And I'm pretty sure the superintendent's got a phenomenal plan that she's going to be presenting to this committee of how to grow that office to make sure that we are not missing any families out there that are not getting the services that they need with McKinney-Vento.
So the nice thing about my idea of reorganization is that we do have a number of people and positions in the district that are kind of doing the work in pockets. For example, Janice Johnson-Plumer, who's our family resource coordinator, is a significant, I would even argue, right arm to this work, and her knowledge and expertise of shelters and SNAP benefits and things like that is a huge asset, not only to the families that benefit from that knowledge, but also to me, because that wasn't an area of expertise that I had when I came in. So I work very closely with her. And then we do have our bilingual facilitators do a lot of communicating with families. I know that within individual schools, there are individuals who kind of take on the role of family engagement. So when I talk about kind of expanding the office or the work, it's not necessarily meaning that we need to create new positions. It's more of just thinking more broadly about how the current resources that we have can focus a little bit more intently on this population or this service, maybe in service of other things too.
No, I totally agree. It's just that sometimes when we hear like Janice, I'm like, and I know what she does, and I'm like, wow, this is just a one person, I don't want to say show, but it's just doing this phenomenal work. It's just like, does there need to be 2 or 3 people? Because we don't know what we're missing, and also identifying those families is also more resources to the district, so.
Yeah, and I think that, the more intimately we can get to know these families and what they're going through, the more deliberate and intentional we can be about the types of services and supports that we can offer them, but also what we create or offer within our own infrastructure here in the school district. And that's challenging. With over 1,000 students is difficult to know intimately, right? In a smaller district with smaller numbers, you might be able to have more of those conversations with those families. And so that's where I'd like to get to a place where we can kind of do a little bit more of that work and work a little bit more closely with the families so that they know and feel that they are supported perhaps more strongly than they are now.
No, I totally agree, but, as you mentioned, we don't know what this administration, when we talk about administration, we're talking about on the federal side, not within the city or the state. We just want to make sure that, people understand that is, if these funds get cut, I mean, that's, we have to make sure that we're ready to supplement that. And, transportation is a huge cost. We have some issues in that we have to address, and hopefully that administration, sees that it's going to impact a lot. And, we see what's going on in the media of, getting rid of the education department. It's not a good thing. So, and that's, that's where the dollars are coming from. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But thank you again for the presentation. I look forward to getting more data and seeing how the committee can support, moving forward and once we craft that budget. So.
I just want to thank you very much. I also want to say, I don't know if you know, I have 2 really talented teammates in my office. Jasmine Bradshaw, she's our Director of Social Services, and Courtney Henderson is our Immigration Services Director. And, they're working with our homeless population each and every day. So I took a lot of snapshots of what you did up there. I'm going to show them tomorrow, and you'll expect to hear from them tomorrow to assist as well.
Yes, I'm already working with Jasmine
Okay.
on your homeless task force.
Good. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Follow up, Mr. Vega.
Just briefly, I don't want to lose this. Not related to McKinney-Vento, but the Dibbles numbers that you shared earlier. So if I'm looking at this correctly and I'm doing my simple math right, we've seen net positive gains of just shy of 10%. How often do Dibbles happen? Dibbles assessments?
We benchmark 3 times. Oh, sorry. Beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year as benchmarks, and then progress monitoring before, between those spaces to inform instruction. And we just, if I may, for 60 more seconds, just did our middle of the year presentation. And if you think the kindergarten numbers are impressive, you should hear about the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. Because those grade levels began this year a step up from where they were last year. Kindergarten actually came in as a more significant need this year as compared to last year, but at middle of the year was still in a better place than they were last year.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but with that 3rd assessment coming up at the end of the year, we stand to receive another set of data that shows overall growth in excess of the 10% that we're looking at now?
I can guarantee that.
And I think that is something that's significant to have, to be in a situation where we could talk 15%, 20%, like growth in that skill, in that assessment is very exciting, I think. The only reason I want to highlight it is because I think at first folks might look at the red bands that were which are deep and are significant, and not recognize that 10% that we're at now is only going to grow between now and the end of the year, and we're going to dig ourselves out of that hole. I can't, the work you all are doing is just incredible.
The work of the teachers in the classrooms and the principals in those buildings and the district leaders, absolutely incredible. And amazing students and families, too.
Mr. Vega, are you all set? Follow-up, Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes, I just had a question on the literacy, the kindergarten literacy. So I know you mentioned the Wonders program is being used. Is that CADA? The Wonders program is, Dr. Spalding might be a...
K through 5, and then we have World of Wonders for pre-K.
Okay. So that's the literacy programs for kindergarten. There's 2 programs.
Yes, and the World of Wonders is connected to our Wonders curriculum. And then we have some strategies like enhanced core reading instruction, which is happening in K1 and 2 to develop the early foundational skills.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional questions at this time? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Thank you very much again. B is items to refer to subcommittee. Are there any matters to go to subcommittee tonight that we're aware of? Mr. Vega.
Just for, something that I'd like to put into future policy manual subcommittee meeting, doing a little research with the central office.
That's a good catch.
No problem. Doing a little research with some folks in the central office. There are a number of items in the policy manual that were reviewed some time ago but not approved. So I think we definitely at subcommittee level should take a little time to look at those. I can present those out. Also, I think with the city side report that came out recently, a series of recommendations were given. I think we need to take a little time to identify which of those translate into potential policy changes that need to be discussed and voted on by this committee. So if we could get that on, I don't even still don't fully understand, like, what is the process by which a subcommittee gets called and put together?
Well, the chair would call it at the
Oh,
request.
I should say scheduled.
Yeah, at the request of the respective membership.
Thank you.
Mr. Gomes, please.
Yes, thank you. So quick heads up, we will be having let me call it AAMEC, the athletics, arts, music, extracurricular art subcommittee meeting March 4th at 5:30. We did have to reschedule the one we had scheduled for last week with the whole IT issue because some of the folks that were going to present were sick, some weren't available to come in. So we'll be having it March 4th at 5:30 p.m.
Here in the Romm
Here
Theater.
in the
Great.
No, is it here, Tony, or Arnone, Mr. Vice Chair? It's Arnone. Yeah, Arnone. Well, you scheduled it for me. It's gonna be at Arnone.
Unknown, okay.
Yes.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional matters to go to subcommittee, Mr. Vice Chairman?
If all the members can take out their pens. So on February 25 at 6 p.m., we will have a curriculum subcommittee meeting. And then at 6:30, we will have an accounts review subcommittee meeting, which will be here. And then we'll also, on March 11th, we will have a policy subcommittee meeting. And then also we will have, following that meeting, we will have a transportation subcommittee meeting. And then on 3/18, we will have a subcommittee with the superintendent contract. But that, we have to amend that title to include evaluation. So the superintendent will be making a presentation so we can start the evaluation process. And then on April 1st, April Fools, but at 5:30, we will have another scheduled accounts review subcommittee meeting. And on one of these meetings I will be scheduling, so we're gonna have a few accounts subcommittee meetings, as it's a committee of the whole now, and last year we didn't meet at all, so.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Vega, follow-up?
Just a quick question. As we're scheduling, have we found, and I apologize if you just said it, where we can put in transportation discussion and review? Was that March 11th?
That was
That's on the 11th.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Any other matters? We're going to move on then. We're going to go back to Agenda 4, consent agenda. We've already taken A1 out of order. What is the will of the committee relative to all the other matters? A 2, 3, 4, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. What is the will of the committee, please, Mr. Vice Chairman?
On 2A, we still have to put that on to take a vote because we didn't vote on it,
Okay.
even though we took it out
Yep,
of order.
you're right,
I know we had
you're
a
right.
little
Yep.
incident. So.
Yep, to accept it, yep. Do you want to take them collectively, anything else? Because we took A1, which is the 2A enclosure, out of order, we will just take that separately and distinct. Is there a motion to accept the Brockton Buccaneers generous football donation amount tonight?
Motion to accept the Brockton Buccaneers football donation tonight.
Motion
Second.
made by Ms. Someone yelling?
They're practicing.
Oh, Ms. Oliver made the motion. It was probably seconded by Mr. Gomes. All in favor of accepting that, please raise your hand. If you're opposed, that passes unanimously. We will now, if there's the will of the committee to take everything else collectively, please make that motion.
Can I just say on B
I'm sorry, yes?
and D, if I could just make a comment on B and D on A? Well, the second and the fourth one is not really a B and D, but.
Yep.
Okay.
So that would be Brockton High School TV Studio, and then the Mary E. Baker School Sneakers and Hats by Shoes That Fit, and the Lids Foundation?
Yes. So 2B was a donation by Channel 5 for a anchor desk for Brockton High TV Studio, so I would like to thank Channel 5 for that. And on the fourth one, the Mary E. Baker, I would like to thank Erica Payne, who organized all this for students to get a new pair of sneakers and a winter hat. She organized the whole thing for every student to get a new pair of sneakers and a winter hat at the Baker School, which I think is awesome. And I would like to meet Erica Payne, but I don't know her, but I would like to thank her. Thank you, Erica.
I'll put you in touch with her. She's a good friend of mine.
Okay.
On that, before you go, I can introduce you to Erica Payne, but also we're chair moms together, and I was there for that event. It was an incredible event, and the kids just seeing a smile. And one of the kids that got the sneakers is my nephew. He's a kindergarten. He was so excited to get his sneakers, but it was a great day, and Erica did a great job. And we're leaving on Thursday for cheer competition in Atlanta. So we're going to bring a lot of Brockton students that are part of this cheer team, and we're going to bring, first place coming back. But Erica is a great paraspecial at Baker's, and she does an incredible job.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver.
Just to
Vice
mention
Chairman.
on that too is that I attended that event as well, is that every student in the school received a pair of sneakers and hats. And then also you had Patriots quarterback Jacoby Brissett there to actually hand that out. And these sneakers were very, very expensive. So, just, the Jason Tatums and the Jordans and all types of stuff. So, and this is one of those things that when you have an organization like this, and thank you to Mrs. Payne for organizing this, when we just had Ms. Shauna Gray talk about McKinney-Vento and our homeless students, and some of these kids would never, ever even get what they got that day. $300 pair of sneakers. I was just like, wow, dude, you got a size 13 for me. But it was a wonderful event, and thank you, Mrs. Sullivan, for actually pulling that out and acknowledging the organizations. Thank you.
What's the will of the committee at this time? Just A?
We can do all of them.
Yeah.
Motion to accept A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
Yep, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan, is properly second by Mr. Gomes. And just for clarification for the records, it would be A, the second, the third, and the fourth matter, and then B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. And I need to read that into the record if I could. A, Brockton High School TV Studio. A3, Edgar B. Davis School Sneakers to students on the basketball team. And the next matter on A, Mary E. Baker School Sneakers and Hats by the Shoes That Fit and the Lids Foundation. B is the approval of the Jane Family Scholarship. C is the approval of the field trip Brockton High School DECA State Conference. D is the approval of 2024-2025 home education request. E is the approval of the minutes, special school committee meeting dated September 18th, 2024. F is the approval of the minutes, security, safety, transportation subcommittee meeting dated October 1, 2024. G is request for authorization to accept proposals and expenditures of funds. FC 0592, partnership for reading success, MA Prism 1, state and federal competitive in the amount of $30,000 even. STEM with National Grid and Boston Children's Museum, the amount of $18,300. Massachusetts Cultural Council, Ashfield Middle School, in the amount of $5,000 even. And then H is the acceptance of human resource notifications, appointments, non-certified personnel actions, leaves of absences, resignations, retirements. We have a motion. It was properly second. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. All of those pass. We have already taken 5 out of order. We've taken 8 out of order. We'll go to number 6 now, which is new business. Number 1 is update and discussion regarding school police and their special police powers. I know Mr. Vega wanted this on the agenda. I know we have Chief Brenda Perez, Brockton Police Chief. Vice Chair, please.
I would like to remove items under new business, items number 4 and 5. That will be referred to our next policy subcommittee meeting, so we can take that off the agenda.
It's the form of a motion. Is there a second to take 4 and 5 off?
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Rodriguez, probably seconded by Ms. Ola. All in favor of taking 4 and 5 off this current agenda, please raise your hand. No, this is 4 and 5, right? Yep. Okay. So those do pass. So those will go on to the next. At this time, again, Mr. Vega, you have the floor, and I want to thank the chief for being here tonight. Thank you, Chief.
And I want to thank the chief and the superintendent. I've had an opportunity to talk to both of them.
Yep.
And really, what got the ball rolling for me is, recently we found ourselves in a situation where we were without several school police officers due to a temporary change in their status. Some parents had approached me about this and were aware of it. I really feel strongly that for those parents, especially, given the concerns that have come out around safety, our own safety audits, our dependency on school police, as well as city side police, to create an opportunity to find out how it happened, what happened, and how we have since rectified the situation.
I also just want a point of information. I had a really wonderful meeting a week ago Friday with Dr. Tahiliani and Chief Perez in my office on a Friday in the afternoon, and it was really productive. Priya brought a bunch of information, Brenda brought a bunch of information, and there was just sharing and a meeting of the mind. So I just want to commend them. 4 o'clock on a Friday is not always ideal, but 2 professional individuals met with me, and it was great. So thank you.
So just to recap, so we went for a period of about 5 days without the majority of our school police officers. So my first question was simply, how did that happen?
Good evening, Chief.
Okay. Redo. Good evening, school committee members, superintendent, mayor.
Good evening.
Brockton is the only municipality in Massachusetts out of 351 that grants police powers to school police officers employed by the school department. Given this unique structure, there's no direct comparison or precedent that the mayor, the superintendent, or I can reference for guidance. While city ordinance mandates that officers must be sworn in by the last Monday of January, this year, January 27th, it does not define the process for granting police powers. As chief, I am responsible for establishing this process, which includes a thorough vetting process and evaluation of each applicant before their annual approval. This applies to special police officers, which for the city of Brockton and for Brockton Police are our school police officers and our retired police officers. With the implementation of the Police Reform Bill and the establishment of the Peace Officer Standard and Training Commission post, we are mandated to comply with state and post regulations to ensure and adhere to any CMR regulations and the state law and other post requirements. My team and Brockton school officials met on January 7th to outline the necessary steps that we're looking for based on the updated CMR or new CMR. Key issues were discussed January 7th, including maintaining a post-commission file, each officer ensuring that for each officer and ensuring that BPD conducts all required investigations per the CMR. Additionally, concerns were raised about past issues of Brockton Police not being notified of absences, investigation, and disciplinary matters. These issues do not arise in any other municipality where school-based officers are direct employees of the police department. This is unique to us. On January 15th, Brockton Public Schools did provide some personnel and medical documentation to us that we requested on a thumb drive. However, upon review, it was immediately apparent that we were missing some investigation and disciplinary matters. And we know this because in previous investigations, we had received documentation that was missing in this initial data. On January 17th, the Brockton Police Department let the public schools know that we were missing these complaints and investigative reports. BPS, we have been in constant communication throughout the last couple of weeks in trying to get this information so that we can properly look at our officers and properly vet them. BPS let us know that yes, there were omissions. If there is no discipline, they don't maintain the files, but that they would look into it because files did exist and they would provide them. So that was on January 22nd. Some additional records were provided on January 28th, but delays and incomplete documentation hindered our ability to properly vet our officers for reappointment. With that also, the reappointment documentation was not provided until January 22nd and 23rd, after I inquired with my liaison as to not having them received on the 21st. This delay reinforced the back and forth, trying to be in compliance, delayed the completion of the process on time, and while the ordinance sets the deadline for swearing in, it is my responsibility to ensure officers meet the necessary standards every year before granting police powers. Although Brockton's school structure, police structure, is unique, compliance with the state law and post requirements is not optional for any of our police officers. My priority remains ensuring that all our officers meet the highest professional standards and serve as a positive presence in our school community before being granted police powers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. That's super informative, and I think it helps a lot of people understand things. And forgive me for not having the right language, but for our school police going through this annual process, is there an expiration that's demanded from the state or from some sort of ordinance that says, hey, if it's not hit by these dates, they lose powers? Or can it be that we roll with the existing and as things are happening? And really, because I fully agree with the idea that we have to have standards, we have to abide by what we're being asked to, but also just wondering then what that means for school safety, right? Like, so does it have an expiration date, that annual?
So the ordinance says the fourth Monday in January.
And Dr. Tiani, so with these dates, and are you feeling like these dates are feasible? Like this is a workable solution?
So I just want to be very frank with the families that I think that this situation was avoidable. I think, there were certainly miscommunications. I think we could have done a better job of making sure that we met this deadline and that our police did not. go without police powers. I think there are a number of different ways we could have gone about ensuring that, and that it is our responsibility collectively in order to do that moving forward. In the conversation that I did have with the chief and the mayor after the fact, I think my main point was that that while I recognize all of the different requirements we are under, the school department at no time was not providing or keeping materials. We were doing our best to get everything over as soon as possible. I was not aware at any point that by not providing X, the police, I did not recognize that the two were related. And those were never linked at any time. So I would have to disagree a little bit about how this kind of unfolded. I think that we have a plan moving forward for how it will not happen again. But I think that that the school department is doing our best in a lot of different areas just to make sure that we are providing everything we possibly can to the city, that we are doing all of the things that we need to do in order to remain in compliance. And all that really I'm hoping for moving forward is just communication regarding when things like this are going to happen. You know, when bills are not going to get paid, or when the police are going to lose their powers because of X, Y. There was no point at which I was told, don't get this in by this date, and the police are going to lose their powers, right? So I think that needs to be more clear moving forward. Also, to the point of no applications had been done. That on the meeting that we had that Friday, it was brought up to me that the applications hadn't been done until the 22nd or 23rd. And then when I asked, well, who does those? It's not somebody who works on the school department side. It's somebody who works on the city side. So so I'm like, well, how am I supposed to mandate that they do that, you know? And it is part of this unique situation that we have, but I think we all need to take responsibility for the role that we played in this. And yes, I take responsibility if we were missing certain documents, but also there needs to be some responsibility taken for, we need to know before 4:44 p.m. that they're losing their police powers at midnight. It can't be like, oh, it's a pumpkin, like, too bad Cinderella. You know, there should have been a plan in place ahead of time to ensure that our police never went without powers. And now that I better understand, because I then spent that entire week learning all of the regulations and getting myself up to speed and becoming an expert, that I will ensure on our end that it doesn't happen again. But I think that this was definitely an area where we have some growth as far as how we work together at the city and the schools. But again, I just want to say, we are doing our best to comply on this, on the school side.
I appreciate that from both of you. And I mean, I think what I'm hearing, one common thread that I'm hearing is the complete uniqueness of our current situation, where we have a school police force and a city police force. And that school police force, if I'm understanding correctly, is paid through the school, but really in the end answers to Chief Perez. So I know this question leads to a larger discussion, but I think the question has to be asked, why are we maintaining that? Why aren't we merging school police and city police? I know that's a bigger question. I've had the chance to talk to the chief and the superintendent about this briefly with the mayor, right? The reason why I think we need to say it out loud is because there are a number of big discussions and big problems that have to be addressed, and I'm not hearing anybody talk about it. I think, you know, so if this is something that needs to be done, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take buy-in and work with us, the mayor's office, city council, unions, then that conversation needs to start, because what we're talking about is the safety of students, right? And I think we recognize, I don't know how this happened in the past. I know a lot of things about education. I know nothing about law enforcement. I think, you know, I don't know that a school district running a police force is in the best interest of our students, you know. So I think that conversation, I don't know where it begins, you know, but it needs to be put on the table.
Mr. Vega, I could just opine on that, because both Superintendent, myself and the chief have talked about this, and you're right. I mean, it is a large endeavor. I think it's a good endeavor, and I think it needs to happen. It can't happen overnight. Brockton Police have two unions, right? They have the patrolman officers, they have the supervisors union. School police are part of the Teamsters union. We're a civil service community. So there are a lot of things that have to be worked out. But I can speak right now on behalf of the superintendent, myself, and the chief. We've talked about this, and you know, ultimately it makes sense. It makes business sense. It makes financial sense. But it's going to take a lot. Brockton Police, like every police in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, are Group 4. School police are not. So then you need the State House to help us on that, and that's been up there in a while.
You remind me what Group 4 means? And by remind, I mean tell me.
For retirement purposes and stuff. So, you know, I think the learning lesson here, and you know, is much like any department head that comes to me as the mayor. I want to make this clear because I think there was some confusion. If there's an appointment or a reappointment by a department, police or fire, once the letter gets generated to me from the department head, in this case Chief Perez, I sign a supporting letter and we file it with the city clerk. And that was done on the Monday within hours, minutes, actually within the hour. I also want to make this clear because I know Chris is here from the enterprise. At no time, even though the police powers for the school police were not ratified, the chief, in her authority, assigned other Brockton police to the schools. And that's extremely important, Chief, because, you know, there might be some concern out there, like my kid goes to one of the middle schools, right? My son. So could you just share that? Because I'm not the chief, but I'd love to, you know.
So we did not, we did have SROs assigned to the schools. At no time did we not have certified officers. And so we were not at any time out of compliance, so.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Super. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Azak, please.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Superintendent. So the way the ordinance is written is pretty clear. So how are we going to set a reminder in December to make sure we get the chief all that she needs? And like, there's got to be an easy way to just have a reminder so she gets her info, we get the info over to the department, rather than wait till January.
So we have at this point, because of the new requirements, we've provided all of the information. And from now on, and another reason to potentially think about merging these two unions is because now under the new requirements, we don't even do the investigations. We don't keep a lot of the personnel. It is all going to go straight through the police department entirely. So if that is the case, then they truly are our employees in name only. And so as a matter of procedure, there's not going to be, this was part of us getting into compliance. As a matter of procedure, there's not going to be another big data dump to be done. In the future, it is now going to be a continuous flow of information. So my hope would be that there would be no issue moving forward at all, and that police powers would be granted on time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this happened before, correct? This isn't the first time this happened.
Happened last year.
Yeah, it happened last year. So again, it was a totally different administration, but we're in good hands. I believe this isn't going to happen after this time. We're going to get our chief what she needs and work together. But like deadlines, rather than wait till January, we got to start in December.
And I would totally agree. I think part of my frustration did lie with the fact that this had happened before. So again, coming in new, to me, why is it happening again? This should have been something, and you know, like, I'm again happy to do my part, but we all need to take part in a collective, you know, desire to move forward. And so, you know, kind of like with the paying the bills, we know it happened once, so now we've got our eye on it and we are making sure it happens. To me, I was like, well, why is this happening again? And what could have been done to prevent it? And I do believe there were things that could have been done to prevent it. And I think it is our job collectively to make sure that those things happen moving forward.
Okay. It might not be a bad idea for the school committee to just have it on our agenda to just make sure that we, in December of '25, just make sure that our police we get what we need to the, I know it sounds pretty basic, but there's just a lot going on, and sometimes people forget, things happen. But as long as we have it somewhere in our calendar, just a reminder to make sure we get that. That way, that avoids what happened.
I would actually hope by next year we've made some progress on the other conversation. To that point, I think that, yes, while I think it's complicated, I guess, like, I was sort of like, well, this is how we could do it. Like, here's the, I don't see it as being as complicated. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think that this needs to be, again, we need to have the conversation. We need to outline step 1, step 2, step 3, rather than sometimes I wonder if we're overcomplicating or over-talking about things rather than just moving forward and acting. And so I think that the next conversation needs to be, what are the actual steps that it would take in order to make this happen?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azak. Any other questions relative to this matter? Vice Chairman, please.
I don't know if this is, it's more of a statement, but the one thing that, kind of, and I know the answers to it, but it's, just for public consumption, it's just that, the city council many years ago did change the city ordinance that included a lieutenant from downtown to supervise them. So when I was in the initial meeting, because, the post and the CMR changed, but it's kind of like, what's the purpose of them supervising them when it comes to investigations? Because they do work downtown, they are in a leadership role, so if there's any discipline in the investigation, it falls on that lieutenant, because that's what the city ordinance was created for. So I don't know where the breakdown is. There just needs to be, collaboration of, like, the process moving forward. I know the CMR post has changed, moving forward. So it's kind of, then we have the city ordinance where I think the city council needs to change that with this yearly, or if it needs to be 2 years or 3 years, or just completely wipe it out, because obviously there are evaluation processes that, every employee needs to get evaluated on a yearly basis, and that falls on the chief and when it comes to those investigations. So I think there needs to be some changes, but when you talk about it, I find it very hard to grasp, is that we have a city ordinance that precludes on a certain date that school police officers are specials, and then you have retirees. When I go back and I look at the the city council agenda and I see retirees getting reappointed, and I don't see full-time officers that work for the school department not getting reappointed, that's a major concern at that. So, but it just needs a, we've been dealing with a lot, just a little bit better collaboration of making sure that this doesn't happen again, because at the end of the day, I haven't seen the cost, because them losing their powers did have a cost to it. So because something broke down or whatever happened in that process, it did cost us, and I know we didn't budget for that. So we just have to make sure that gets rectified, and hopefully the school district didn't get a bill for that. So we just have to fix that.
Thank you. Any other matters about this? Because we have a couple more agenda items before we go to
Just on
executive session.
the piggyback, if we definitely can get an update of the cost of that days that we did not have the school police, exactly what it cost us for detailing all the police officers, and also their rank, who we use, because that depends on how much they get paid per hour. I know there was a few months ago, there was an issue about an article about that, using detailing for crossing guard. So definitely if we can have like a price of how much that cost us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Mayor, I believe the superintendent has that information.
Okay.
Well, we only have the first invoice for the first 3 days, and there were another, so I imagine I'd sent an email because I imagine there is another one coming. So we do have that today, because I did want to speak with the chief about what that is going to look like moving forward, because that is not, now I take responsibility for the fact that I did ask for the extra police detail, because when I received notification that the police were losing their powers, I did not then receive a subsequent plan for what we were going to be doing and so in my capacity as the leader of the district, I then am that evening trying to figure out what is the plan, what are we doing? Because I did feel like it was my responsibility to ensure that we had appropriate coverage. So I did request that Lieutenant Benanca check in and see if we could get an extra police detail, because I had not received a contingency plan. So that is something that I requested. I don't know if that was something that was going to be provided had I not requested it, so I do think I want to be honest about that, that certainly is something that we can discuss as far as the cost, because I did request it. Do I believe it should have been provided? Absolutely, but.
Mayor,
Sir.
so why would, I mean, details are specialty type jobs, but, you know, why would they go for detail? Why, was it detail or was it coverage? Because there's two different components there, because if it's coverage, then
I don't know, because I'm not as,
okay.
but
No,
we
I
do
just
have the
wanted to make
bills,
sure
and y'all can
because
certainly look at
detail
it.
rates is very high then versus, you know, I'm sending coverage or overtime, so I wouldn't consider covering school safety as a detail.
We could look into it. I wouldn't know that answer.
So I received the email 30 minutes before I got here on what the superintendent is discussing
Okay.
with where she ordered the details. So as far as coverage is concerned for the schools, we did have Sergeant Livingston. We do have another officer that is SRO certified to be in the schools.
We'll vet it out. Yeah,
It-
we'll figure it out.
Right, but we didn't believe that that was going to be appropriate, so we did request extra support.
Deeper conversation than tonight, so we'll figure it out. and
Figure it out.
Everybody will be on the same page, so things happen and we just have to address it while we move forward, so.
Any other comments relative to this matter? Seeing none, thank you, Chief. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
And it's my understanding, Chief, on the police liaison, school safety and security, Officer Mosley's going to give the update tonight. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, sorry. It's late. It's late. Number two, and again, the superintendent touched upon this, but update and discussion on the can you say that word for me, please? Thank you. Of policies regarding federal grants and funds, and I think, Mr. Vega, did you file this as well? Thank you,
And
sir.
really, you know, it came up earlier in our McKinney-Vento conversation. It's come up in some of the one-on-ones that I've had with the superintendent. I know other folks have brought this up. It's really a question to colleagues, but also to city officials. Like, what are, if any, the safety rails that we can put up in the event that federal funding that we desperately rely on disappears. And I recognize that we don't have the capacity to fill that hole should it happen, but I also recognize it's our responsibility to make sure that we've thought through plans, right? And so, you know, so what, you know, and I'm not sure where that lives or how we get to that point, but I do think, you know, getting the sense from the superintendent about like what are some of the immediate thoughts that you have on that, and perhaps to the larger group, like what are the things that we need to think about at a committee level to prepare for the worst case scenario?
So this is actually an area where the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or DESE, is taking a very active role, which I'm super appreciative of. So they immediately, upon the first notification, had their lawyers involved. I believe there were already, I don't know what it's called when you like contest it. There were already filed, you know, so I think if something were to happen, it would not go uncontested by the state. So the message that they have delivered to us is we are keeping an eye on it. We will communicate with you. Even if something were to change or something were to come out, you continue business as usual, and we will let you know when something actually changes. Because their plan is to then, they will, you know, again, I don't know, their lawyers do what their lawyers do, and then we'll determine what it looks like for us. But they have given us some, you know, DESE doesn't always give us the greatest assurances, but I will say that in this case, I do feel comfortable with their messaging around, let's say that had come out and said it's frozen, it's done. These funds have also, you are in the middle of a budget cycle, like these monies have been expended, you know, don't freak out just yet, and then stand by because we will start filing, I don't know, injunctions. I'm not a lawyer. Okay, so they will start actively ensuring that our funds for our students are kept safe, you know, kept whole. I think the greater concern, actually, I don't think, and maybe I'm naive, I don't think they're going to take the big buckets of IDEA and things like that away. I think that would be crippling for every single district. I think where we're going to see more impacts are to those smaller DESE grants like McKinney-Vento. So I think those are the areas where we do need to be more mindful and where we are thinking about in the upcoming budget, how are we appropriately allocating resources.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this matter? Thank you, Mr. Vega. We'll move on. Next agenda item is discussion of policy, adopt a policy designating specific vocational schools as, quote, preferred for purposes of Chapter 74 non-resident student tuition program. Superintendent.
So I wanted to bring this up for discussion this evening because so it was actually interesting. There was a presentation that I did earlier this year on transportation and where we were transporting students. And there was a slide that actually Mrs. Sullivan had honed in on saying, Bristol Aggie, we don't send kids to Bristol Aggie. So in digging into our transportation a little bit more deeply, because that is what we're doing, and we will have a larger presentation on that later, one of the things that we have found is, yes, we are transporting students to Bristol Aggie. So the situation is that, and I had sent a policy to you all, which I will also read, under DESE's, from the Office of College, Career, and Technical Education. So it's the guidelines that we have for our vocational technical education programs and for non-resident student tuition process. So we have, I think as a matter of practice here, sent students to Norfolk Aggie, which was your original point. And so in looking into this, we do have students going to Bristol Aggie, and the reason is because we need to designate a school of preference. So under the guideline, it states that while students may apply to any school which accepts application from non-resident students, a district may, through its school committee, adopt a policy designating specific vocational schools as preferred vocational schools for purposes of the Chapter 74 non-resident student tuition program. This means that the district may direct students to apply to the preferred school before applying to any other vocational school. If a student does not apply to a preferred vocational school, the superintendent may disapprove the application for a non-resident tuition. Policies designating preferred vocational schools must be adopted by the school committee and made available to students and their parents or guardians. So I think the matter of practice here was that the preferred school was Norfolk, but I don't know, and in the process of researching, trying to figure out if or when that was reduced to writing and a policy that was approved by the school committee. And at this point in time, I found that it is not, which is probably explains why we have students that are going to Bristol Aggie. So this is the reason that I wanted to bring this, oh, look at that. I didn't know that was going to be up there. So here is the example of a template policy from another school district that has this right on their website that says, and I just left blanks because obviously you all would have to determine what is our preferred school, that then this becomes a policy so then students know. Because if it is not reduced to writing in this way, then we are responsible not just for the tuition to the school, but also for the transportation. And this is kind of how this was discovered in the first place. So just to give you an idea of what we are looking at, for Norfolk Aggie, we have 29 students who are attending. The tuition for that is $27,905 per student, so that's about $788,000 that we are paying. We currently, so that's where we are paying to Norfolk Aggie. Bristol Aggie, we have 4 students, and that is, the tuition there is $29,000, and so we are paying $116,000. As far as the tuition costs, because Bristol Aggie is a smaller group, it is on our private transportation, and so it is costing us $36,000 per year for Bristol Aggie. For Norfolk Aggie, yes, for transportation. So the tuition is $116,000, transportation is $36,000. For Norfolk Aggie, because we have 29 students at Norfolk Aggie, they are actually transported by our own internal bus. So there's not a, I can't compare apples to apples here. So it's not like we're writing a check or, it is part of our fleet of buses. So it costs us the cost of maintaining the bus, the salary, and what we pay, because it is a large enough group of students to where we are transporting them with one of our large yellow buses. So I just wanted to put this forward for initial discussion. And, just to see if anybody has any thoughts. I know that this is a policy decision and you may want to consider it, but I just wanted to put this forward to you because we are receiving requests for students to go to these schools that I have to sign off on, and I need to feel comfortable that I have been given authority to sign off on particular schools. Now, at this point, the one thing I will be honest that I don't know is I may need to sign off on all the ones that have come in thus far because we don't have a policy yet. That is what I don't know, and I will get back to you on it. But either way, I felt that this was an appropriate discussion for us to at least have, because there are implications, there are budgetary implications, both with tuition, but then also really with the transportation. So again, we'll loop back to this later during a transportation presentation, and then again during the budget.
Superintendent, quick question. For purposes of this, is there a difference between an Aggie versus a Voc Tech?
Yes, so we are required to have these preferred schools that provide programming that we do not have in our own school. So when it comes to the Aggies, and that's kind of why I'm asking these ones, because they both provide these agricultural programs, we would have the opportunity to choose one or the other. There are other schools that provide other Chapter 74 programs that we do not have, that we send students to. What are those schools that I'm now forgetting? Southeastern, right, Southeastern, and that comes as part of our budget, right. So those are different, but when it comes to the agricultural schools, because we don't provide it, so we have to pay for them to go. But since they provide the same ones, we could say, hey, you know what, it's just more economical for us to be able to say, this is our preferred school. Now, that does not preclude a student from deciding, you know what, this is the school for me, but that just means it would not fall under the umbrella of our expenses and our transportation.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
So our preferred choice would basically be Norfolk Aggie, because that's where the cost savings is, even though it's up there, because we're providing the transportation. So with this policy implementation, is it time sensitive? Is it something that we can get done tonight that can help you out if that's the case?
So that is,
or do we, because we do have a policy subcommittee schedule, but if it's something that's time sensitive, I would like to act on that tonight, if that's gonna speed up your process on there.
well, the finances are $29,000 for tuition, and then we would have to pay transportation. The transportation right now, because we are using one private bus for the 4 students, currently costs $36,000 for this year. So again, these are 2 buckets of expenses, and we won't be able to not have that expense next year, right? Because those 4 students are still going to Bristol Aggie. So this is really about thinking about the future. I know it's, a nominal cost savings, but again, it's also about operational efficiency and just making sure. So the one answer to the question that I don't have the answer to and have not been able to get the answer to your question, Vice Chair, which is a good one, is this time sensitive tonight? Because I do have applications on my desk. I don't know if we are still, I believe we might still be required, because we do not have a policy at this time that was posted it may still be a requirement that we approve the current Bristol Aggie
So it is time sensitive on that, so, because we don't want to wait. With that being said, I'll motion to suspend the adoption of our policy in order to act on this matter this evening.
There's a motion on the floor to waive suspension and act under the suspension of the rules tonight. Motion was made by the Vice Chair. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Motion was made. It was properly seconded by Mr. Gomes. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. On the motion? On the motion.
Is there any reason to be concerned? Like, if it's a no-brainer, it's a no-brainer. But like, is there any chance that we would consider a different vocational school? Is there, have you had the opportunity to, yeah, I don't want to be a speed bump, but I also want to make sure that, you know, that we're doing our due diligence around this, because I would imagine some families might have some pushback, you know, if the thought is we didn't really.
So,
You are, yeah.
you know, and that is all, so they are equidistant, so it's not about distance, so it really is about programming. I don't think I could presume to determine one way or another, like, you know, telling families which one they should go to. However, I do think it is typical that there is a preferred school that is identified by the school district, again, just because we do have to think about operational efficiency, transportation, planning out what is our transportation. So it's just a good practice too to make sure we're communicating these things appropriately to families so they're making informed decisions. That doesn't mean we're telling them they can't go, right? They'll still be able to apply and attend if they so choose, you know, and take their child themselves. You know, the tuition obviously would not be on us, but it is a matter of, it is within your purview to determine if you want to. And I think there was, based on everything I've researched from being here, I think there was an understanding or a perception that there was a preferred, and I think that's why we see the numbers at Norfolk, is I think that was deemed to have always been the preferred, and I don't know if maybe there was a policy back when, or, you know, I don't know exactly how we got here. I just know that the reason, as to Mrs. Sullivan's point about, wait, we don't send kids to Bristol Aggie, and therefore we're there, and looking at that, me new, not knowing that, and realizing, oh, so this is something that emerged more recently because folks applied, and DESE did say, yes, you do have to pay transportation and you do have to pay tuition because there is no preferred policy. So that's sort of where we are right now.
Thank you.
So they're both agricultural schools, so they both would offer the same program, so there's no reason to be using two schools.
Correct, and they may not, again, I'm not a huge expert on agricultural schools, they may not have one-for-one programs. You know, there could be an agricultural program at one that doesn't exist at another, but by a matter of the guidance that exists by DESE, we are still able to select a preferred one and say, well, these are the ones that, this is the school that has, we only have to have one agricultural preferred school.
That's what I thought we had all along.
And I think that's exactly what folks thought.
Because it's a Norfolk County school, is why I
Right.
thought, because Plymouth County doesn't. Bristol Aggie is in what town? Where is it? Dayton. Okay, and Norfolk Aggie's in Walpole, so that's about the same
It is.
distance? But I don't know what county Bristol is.
Bristol County, yeah.
That's Bristol County, okay. So Norfolk County is the one that we use. It could be, we could get more information from maybe Steve Hook, because I think he knows about stuff like that, because he works with the counties, yeah, of whether we get a certain perk or not for Norfolk County compared to Bristol.
Or whether it's automatically, I will look and research and see if there's an automatic prefer, because you are, you know, we're in the same county. That I don't know, but I will continue to research. I'm just presenting you with my best and most
'Cause
recent research.
Both my kids went to Norfolk Aggie, so, and at the time, you didn't get to pick.
Right.
That was the preferred school. I don't know.
On the motion?
Yes, quick question. So let's say I do apply first to our preferred school and to other schools, and I don't get into my preferred school, and I choose the second school. Does that hinder the chances of me getting approval? For it
So
to be
you
covered
are
by-
still, so that the guidance says that the students may apply and they have to be accepted first for it to even, so their acceptance is the most important part. And then whether or not we are signing off on it is about whether or not we're paying for the tuition and the transportation. So if a student doesn't get in, then they would have to go to Brockton Public School or have to figure out another option. But acceptance is the first key piece. So we cannot say to Bristol Aggie, you need to accept this student. It only comes to us once the student has been accepted to sign off on. And then we have to sign, similar to the special ed placement agreements, we have to sign something basically saying, yes, we are paying for transportation. We recognize that this is an agreement that we have created and established, and this is our responsibility within it.
But we're also paying the tuition.
Correct.
We're
Oh,
also-
that's in there too.
We're
for
also
sure.
paying the tuition, so we can pick where they go.
Yeah.
Thank you for making time for this, Chair.
Ms. Azak, on the motion.
On the motion, so is this the only school that we have private transportation? As far as,
No, we have a lot of, do you mean?
as far as like, well, you mentioned Norfolk Aggie, we have our school buses that we use.
Yes.
Is this the only school, a choice school, given the same scenario where we're providing private transportation for a handful of students to go?
So we do have some requirements for where we have to provide transportation. So like Trinity, Cardinal Spellman, New Heights, but I don't know off the top of my head if those particular ones have private transportation or internal transportation. Based on the numbers, well, actually, looking at the numbers, because I know that when we have a large group of students, we're trying to utilize our own internal. But obviously, when you have as little as 4, we're not going to use one of our big buses. So I can get you that information as far as which schools we are transporting to and what kind of transportation we're using.
I know in years past, when we ran into transportation issues, I was always under the impression that we provide transportation, it's mandatory for elementary. Middle school and high school, it's a choice for us to provide, it's a courtesy to provide them transportation. So we still have to provide transportation for the high schoolers?
Exactly. So yes, that is a great point because you provide it for your students. So what Shauna had actually read earlier was a statute that stated that students, for example, under McKinney-Vento, or we have to provide them with the transportation that is similar to the transportation we provide for our own students. So yes, because Brockton is a school district that is providing transportation for high schoolers, then yes, we have to then transport to high school, to other high schools. But that is a very important distinction, I think, to make, because there are districts that go a different route, that do, and I know it's been brought up, and it's certainly something we've explored, but I definitely think this is part of that bigger transportation discussion we're having about BAT bus pass, things like that. There are, alternatives. But I do also appreciate that Brockton has said that this is something that's important to our school system, which is to transport our students. So I don't bring that up to say, oh, we shouldn't do that. We should, I'm just saying that to state that, yes, there is a difference. We are not required in the same way, but once we are doing it, then we do need to provide it to the other schools as well.
So with this new policy, it's something that we really should act on. That way the families know coming school year 25-26, in case they need to make arrangements. In all fairness, the families should know, at least, rather than postpone it and maybe,
We have a motion on the floor, it was properly seconded, so
So good.
I'll call the vote right now. Just to
Okay.
reiterate it, it was your motion, if you could just reiterate it again, Ms. Vice Chair. What would be the preferred school?
So Norfolk Aggie will be the preferred school.
So that's the motion before us. All in favor of Norfolk Aggie to be the preferred for the policy, kindly raise your hand. If you oppose, raise your hand. It passes unanimous. And that was under suspension of the rules, so it passes tonight. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next agenda item under 6, and it's 6.6, and this is discussion of posting reason for cancellation of the February 4, 2025 regular school committee agenda. I could give you some background on that. I mean, simple answer is it was human error. IT did human error. When the Monday cancellation of the subcommittee happened, they took the agenda showing the cancellation of the subcommittee, and they misplaced it with the regular school committee agenda. The only reason I know that is because when myself and Mr. Sullivan and Mrs. Sullivan were leaving the city council meeting that night, a resident came up to us and showed it to us. So I did reach out to the city solicitor. She looked at it, she screenshotted it, and it was corrected the next day, but because it was posted in error, the meeting had to be canceled. Both Attorney Spotterford is here and Attorney Bridges are here, and they worked on it. Again, as the mayor, I can only apologize. I had nothing to do with it, but I will apologize. IT works for me. It was a human error, and they have assured me that they will double, triple check going forward. So, any other questions on that this evening? Ms. Azak, please.
Just maybe some clarification. So our ordinance just states it needs to be filed with the city clerk's office. I couldn't find anything that said it had to be posted online, just so we can avoid this in the future, because we did have we were presenting, people were here from out of town, things like that. I couldn't find anywhere where it said it had to be posted online.
The Secretary of State's opinion is that our main database for the city of Brockton is the city's website. It is posted also the old-fashioned way on a corkboard in the clerk's office.
I see it near the elevator, too.
And Melinda does a great job working with IT to get it over. And in this case, because if there was no cancellation of the subcommittee, both the agendas would have been okay. When there was a cancellation, rightfully cancellation, it was screwed up. But the Secretary of State does view the city's website as the master posting for appropriate notice for agendas.
So is this something we need to look at as far as our policy? Maybe post it sooner? I mean, what if the website goes down and we're just not aware of it, and that's the only thing, like, just who monitors the websites? I mean, someone just happened to look and saw that it was offline for a few hours.
No, it was actually about 24 hours is what we were
Okay.
told. But regardless,
Yeah,
it was a mistake. They made it. They fessed up to it. And again, legal counsel, my view was, well, it was probably just a minor thing, but because the general public could have looked at it when it was wrong, that creates the potential issue. So out of abundance of caution and to do the right thing legally, the cancellation happened. I mean, Melinda works on drafts. Priya, myself, and Tony look at it. She gets over to IT, and that wasn't the problem. That was posted properly. What happened is when they supplemented it, they screwed up.
Okay. So there's nothing we can do as far as our policy, maybe posting earlier, just to meet that 48-hour deadline? I don't know.
So I'm trying to understand the question. So do you mean because if it was posted earlier, like let's say it was 72 hours and then it had been down for 24 hours, the 48 hours would have still counted? Is that
That's what I was thinking.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know the answer. I was just trying to understand what you were asking.
I'm just thinking
I am definitely a proponent of not posting earlier, knowing sort of what it looks like when we're trying to get the agenda together and post. I don't know how much earlier we could post and, have it be accurate. But I don't know the answer to that question. I did hear something about if your electricity goes out or if something goes down for like 6 hours, you're covered.
I think the Secretary of State would if we had a blackout, I think the Secretary, I mean, I don't want to speak for the attorneys, but that would be an exigent circumstance that I think we'd be able to move forward. Because if anybody challenged us, we have a rightful reason. This was not a rightful reason. This wasn't an act of Mother Nature.
Okay.
This was human error.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, because I just figured as long as it was posted, and I didn't see anything as far as like having to go online. But again, it is 2025. Everything's online now, so I mean, maybe we do need to update our policy to indicate it needs to be posted in all those areas, rather than just the city ordinance that states with the city clerk. Maybe electronic postings or something, but no, that was it. I just want clarification.
And we can work on that. I mean, the council president is great. He's a lawyer. It's great to work with. So, I mean, I think there are a lot of ordinances, having worked there for 14 years, that are dinosaurs. They're antiquated. They need to be updated. So we can look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? We'll move on then. Again, Officer Mosley's been very patient. We will have school safety, security, police liaison, and that is agenda 7. Good evening, officer.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. It's late, so I'll try to be quick. Good evening, Mayor, Superintendent, School Committee. Give you the safety security update. School police powers were restored on Tuesday. CBJJ meeting conducted on Tuesday with the school department, DA's office, and the juvenile probation. Police details were hired to cover the schools needed for Monday and Tuesday. Initial notification was handled with care and gag alerts throughout the week. There was a collaboration with the Brockton CID with the consent to search students for recent suspects of possessing a firearm. No firearms were located, and all vested parties were properly notified. Coordination with Officer Solomon and to prep school PD for academy recruits for the academy. These two individuals potentially going into the police academy is something unique. I don't know if any of you know, but this is the first time I've ever, in my career, I think in any academy, you're going to have a mother and son going together. Yeah, interesting. Coordination with Captain LaFrance and the school PD to get registered for a sexual assault investigation class. Attending recognition ceremony for the first responders at Trinity Catholic on Friday. That was nice. They gave a nice little 3 big baskets of goodies. Yeah, enjoyed very. Thank you, Trinity Catholic. In the process of finalizing logistics for alert active shooter training to be conducted April 22nd and 23rd. That includes location, fire, police, personnel, and auxiliary support aspect. That's a 3-day training course. It's pretty intense. It's a good training. Alice training for the school staff and pushed out for designated training days. School PD highlights the Ashfield Middle School Tiger Talk interviews. All metal detectors checked maintenance and collaborate throughout the district. All school police sign up for the upcoming SRO 2-day refresher training. An out-of-town overdose incident involving a Brockton student was recently reported. The initial investigation was conducted. As it progressed, we were unable to confirm any connection between the vape and the overdose. However, we will continue to be vigilant in locating the seasoned vapes within the school system using both physical and remote surveillance. Students and parents should be aware that the possession of sales of vape pens can lead to school disciplinary action and potential criminal charges. While we have not had no overdose incidents within our schools, the vape pens are harmful and should not be used by students. The police investigation into this matter is ongoing. The incident may not been occurred by the vape pen, but a different substance. Today we made an arrest at Brockton High School related to an assault and battery and dangerous weapon shot foot that occurred yesterday outside the Plymouth School. Other BH students that are involved in the incident have been placed at out-of-school suspension. The case remains under investigation continuing. Any questions?
Questions for the officer? Thank you very
All right,
much,
thank you.
officer. Thank you. Next agenda item is executive session, because we already did 8, which was announcements. Number 9, executive session. I'll read into the record pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, Brockton Education Association, BEA, Brockton Educational Support Professional Association, BESPA, Independent Brockton Administrators, Assistants, and Technical Employees Association, which is the IBAA-TEA, bus drivers, custodians. We need to go into executive session. Is there a motion, please?
Motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Gomes made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Sullivan made the second. I'll call the roll now to go into executive session. Mrs. Sullivan? Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well, and as chair, I want to declare we will not be coming back in open session. Thank you very much, and Melinda, same room we're going to? Okay. Thank you, everybody.